Hi everyone, I'm super excited to host Allister Lewis, founder of ADD ADDD Marketplace. And if you haven't followed him on LinkedIn, you should definitely. He has been writing amazing blog posts about comparing software and the listings on his website. Even recently, the job posting listings for AEC Tech has been super useful. So definitely keep an eye on ADDD Marketplace. Thanks a lot, Alistair, for being on the show.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, I really appreciate it. And yeah, with the name, I mean, I just say ad, but it does seem in hindsight maybe it's a bit difficult. But yeah, just I had to get it stands for automated data driven design, which again is also a bit of a mouthful. But yeah, ad marketplace. But yeah, thank you. I really appreciate that.
Okay, so for people who might not know about your background after your college till this date, what would be your top three career highlights?
Oh wow, that's a great question. Okay. I used to work in a company called Air Chamberlain Gaunt, which is an architecture practice in the UK, and I in that role, my role was head of technology, which was a kind of a made up role because we wanted it to be more than just BIM manager, and I really enjoyed it there because I got the chance to look at everything from hardware, software, the infrastructure like internet lines, and also BIM processes, training, research and development, and that was like something. That diversity of that role is something I really enjoyed. Um, Let me think. I used to work at a company called Cope until the end of last year. So Cope.ai, spelt with a K. It was a really great company. That when I joined, it was as a BIM manager, and we did consultancy work about computational design, but they've transitioned to being 100% a ConTech company, which is super exciting to have kind of been there and seen that transition. And again, I think it's interesting. It's more about the people in a lot of ways. The people at Air Chamberlain Gort were amazing, and I really love the people at Cope as well. It was a really nice team, remote first, people from all over Europe and parts of the world as well. And it was just a really great place to work in that sort of environment. Other career highlights, I think qualifying as an architect. It took me 9 years, and when you get there, it is kind of a big thing. And I've kind of done it, and yeah, I've obviously moved into other areas, but it was a highlight.
Amazing. And can you share what was the inspiration behind Ed building Ed?
Okay. Yeah. So I had like a normal career. I was a normal architect for a number of years. I did community centres and residential buildings and schools, primary schools, which I really loved. And I just transitioned into being more BIM focused. So I used to work at Hampshire County Council, and they asked me to run their first BIM project. And I was like, "Oh, you want me to do it in Revit?" They're like, "No, we want this to be done with building information modelling and you know um, that whole process rather than just the software." So, there's a big learning curve there, and I got really engaged with it and ended up doing a master's in BIM at university, which was again excellent and had again a huge range of people there from the US, Middle East, Japan, all doing that course. It was really great, and the really good thing about the course was it didn't just cover BIM, which is quite good because BIM can get a bit dry after a while. It covered a lot about the construction industry, why it's so fragmented, why we struggle with research and development, why we struggle to introduce new technology. And I did my thesis on data-driven design, and I had conversations with loads of really great individuals. So Proving Ground in the US, who are doing some really early stage computational work. And yeah, there was about 10 different people I spoke to who were working in this sort of area. And it kind of inspired me to think, actually, where are we going with this? What does it look like? And I started to collect software, basically. Every time I saw new software, I was like, oh, I'll put this into a database, which I think most kind of BIM managers do. Most sort of professionals are like, oh, I've got a list of software. But mine's just got a bit more obsessive, and I've built it up. I mean, as of kind of 2 years ago, it was about 500.
Mm.
Right now, it's got 1,500 different architecture, engineering, construction solutions in. And it shows what the ConTech industry is going through at the moment. It's growing, expanding. There's some incredible solutions to solve problems, all the way from small Revit plugins all the way up to big idea type things like Swap and Augmenta and generative AI solutions. And obviously AI has had a big impact in there as well. So that's what I started building up, that kind of database. And rather than leave it there, I wanted to share that in a better way. And I considered doing a web directory for a while, but it seemed to me like it's just a list and it's hard to keep on top of that. And I wanted to make something which was more dynamic, I suppose. And the approach is a platform approach. So there's a book called Revolution in Platforms. I can't remember exactly, but I read that and I was like, actually, Amazon is a platform, Airbnb is a platform. They're obviously extremely very well performing platforms, but the idea is actually for construction technology and services as well. We could have a platform which allows people to create their own store and put their software or their services on there and either market themselves through there and just say, look, we're here, come and see us. And I've got over 100 categories in there to allow people to find things quickly and easily. Or they can sell through there if they want to, which particularly works well for like Revit plugins, where there's a lot of people who've created some amazing software, but it's internal to their company or to them, and it hasn't kind of reached a larger audience. So I think, I'd like to think I'm supporting that. And that's what I created. So the marketplace, which is add.ds.io, has been live since February. And I've spent this year talking to construction technology companies. I've spoken to over 100 different companies. We've got 150 products on the marketplace, and I'd really like to get to 200 by Christmas, but we'll see. And that's been extraordinarily rewarding, because I get to see what they're all working on, what they're creating, and hear their challenges in terms of essentially reaching qualified users, their sort of target customers. And you obviously talked about the blog posts I've been doing. It's been really great just kind of going, I found out about this, have a look at this technology, have a look at this software, or here's a set of solutions which have gone on the marketplace this month, with the aim of essentially promoting all those software out there so that they can reach consultants, professionals, people in the industry to make better decisions in their day-to-day work, or reduce their time, or be more efficient or more productive. And that's where I've kind of got to right now. That's been quite a big journey. And then the last thing I was just going to add is that over the last 18 months, I've been sharing jobs. I think you mentioned that, because I kept seeing jobs on LinkedIn, people going, we need a full stack developer, we need a back end or front end engineer, or machine learning engineer, or product managers. So I just thought, well, I could create a jobs page on my website, which I did, and started sharing those. And again, just did, here's 5 jobs from this last week or 2 weeks. And that was getting a reasonable amount of traffic. And earlier this year, I met with Bragan, who has a newsletter called Last Week in ConTech, which I highly recommend you subscribe to. And he was like, well, I publish jobs as well. And I'm really good at, developing web pages. So why don't we do something together, build a web page for ConTech jobs, and get that out there. So we've been working on it for the last, few months. And we met Stephanie, who is based in the US as well, Stephanie Reichman. She has a what's called Career Pivot. I'm going to say consultancy, but she supports people to move into ConTech. And we were there, actually, this works really well, all of us 3 together. One of us is in the US, one's in the UK, and one's in Australia, which makes meeting quite interesting. And yeah, we've got the website up and out there. So it's www.aectechjobs.com. And that's got 180 jobs on there at the moment, and it's growing, every day. We've had a lot of companies reach out to say they want to be on there, they want to be able to share what they do and be featured, which is amazing. And we've had lots of essentially candidates say to us, we want to find new roles, we want to be working in ConTech, how do we do it? So yeah, that's a very, very brief history of the last sort of 15, 20 years.
That's like I think like both of the niches of like discovery of tools and discovering of like talent and
Mm,
opportunities is like uh is a big need, because there's so much of, like as you were saying, so many new startups coming on. So how to keep track for that
yeah,
particular task, what are the options out there and what works best for me. So
yeah.
making at least the life of BIM managers or digital innovation managers easy by advocating the right solution.
Hopefully, yeah, a little bit. I mean, it's very exciting time. I graduated in 2000, and one of our tutors was like, "This is the most exciting time in architecture," and I kind of think now is the most exciting time in
Mm.
the construction industry. The technology advancements we are making, the work that you're doing around AI as well, and sharing what you do, through this podcast and things. It's like this is an enormously exciting time, and we've never been through something so technologically disruptive as this, I don't think. And we'll see what's going to happen over the next 5 years.
Yes. So, $1 million question: how do you keep up to date with all the startups, because it's difficult to keep track?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Yeah. Well, I've obviously got my database. Whenever I see new software, I add it in there. I look at the web page. I see what it is. I categorize it and I tag it as well. So it usually has a major category. So generative design, for example, and then a load of subcategories because it might be around modern methods of construction or offsite fabrication, or it might be about residential housing or car park design. Or so I got a number of tags which help me to filter that. And I have done consultancy work with architects this year. So when they're looking for solutions, particularly like, for example, around stage 4, architects have said we're looking for Revit plugins at stage 4. What's out there? I can use that database to help me say, well, here's 5 or 6 different things which could help you with either small tasks or larger tasks as well. Um, I, I mean, I'm on LinkedIn a lot, so I see a lot of stuff on there. And because I'm following companies that are essentially ConTech companies, they tend to be linked with other companies that are in ConTech, and the kind of the network grows from there. I follow people like you and see what you're doing and what you're talking about. And obviously Stepan, who's got AI and AEC, and Nick Naz, who's got the AEC plus tech website in the US, which is really good. Conferences are really
Mm.
a good way to do it. So I was at Digital Construction North this week, which is in Manchester in England, which is the first time they've held it in the north of the country. And there were at least 20 vendors there. Uh, and I used it as a way of going around and essentially, I'm trying to think of the right word here. I keep saying kind of pester, but the word should be engage. I'm engaging with them to say, would you like to be on the marketplace? So, this week I met One Breadcrumb, who are a company based out of Australia who are doing a lot around risk assessments, and
Mm.
they integrate into Procore. I met other companies like Bluebeam, which are really well established, and I talked to Procore as well. And there's a company called IFS, which has like an enterprise resource planner. They're a massive, massive company, and I had no idea they existed. And they're like, nope, we've got an incredibly integrated solution for construction, for enterprise resource planners, and they have 5 different sectors, and construction one of them. So conferences is one of the ways. I'd be interested to know, how do you find out about new solutions?
Yeah, like Twitter, LinkedIn, and
Yeah.
like some Google alerts. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I used to do that. I used to do Google alerts for like computational design and parametric architecture and BIM, but um, yeah, it was quite a good way of doing it actually, to just find new information. I've fallen out of the practice of doing that, but that's a good idea. Um, yeah.
And one thing I find it an interesting challenge is how do you classify the solutions? Like even finding the right category names for the startups
Mm.
to enable like filtering when people are discovering various tools on your website, and how do you do tagging, because that could
Yeah.
make a big difference.
So it is a big challenge because many companies will say we're in this niche, but they tend to do other bits as well, or maybe
Mm,
they do a number of different things. So it is hard to say that someone's in one category. In terms of the website, you can categorize um, you can categorize the company type. You can also categorize the product type, and you can also add tags to that as well,
mm,
to products. So you've got a number of ways of being found essentially on the marketplace. So um, if you go to the website, I've slightly updated it in the last week, but there are kind of like some of the bigger names in terms of product types, generative design and AI design tools, and low carbon calculators. I've kind of put there already for people to find. But like I say, with a lot of these companies, they do things in different areas. And I mean, I've never built an e-commerce marketplace before, and it's been a really interesting process of doing that. And it's been really great to essentially see how flexible the actual platform has been. So it makes it much easier than if I tried to design something bespoke, it would have been too difficult. But that's partly how it happens. Is these companies are as I say, I spoke to 100 of them this year. You talk to them and they say, well, this is what we do. And then there's two ways they can go onto the marketplace. They can either create their own profile, create their own store, and choose their own tags, or there's a form they could give to me and I can do that for them. And that's useful for that whole learning process to see where they think they sit essentially. And then there are a few crossover categories which have double meaning, which are like digital asset management. So you do get digital asset management, which is about like photos, which is like a kind of open asset is one example. But then within BIM, you've got digital asset management. It might be about that sort of post completion stuff. So there are some crossovers, which I might need to clarify a bit more. But does that? I don't know if that answered your question. I hope it did.
yeah, yeah. Look, I got the fair idea, because um, even what I was aligning earlier was like, for example, if one could have categories of, okay, is it like a generative design tool or construction detail, or another set of category could be, is it like conceptual design or schematic? So
Yeah.
how do you have like, and there could be one product which does like BIM as well as flow planning. How do you place those?
Yeah. So I think what I've done is that, like you say, with a couple of posts, I did release all of my generative design tools for people to download for free from the website as a sort of leads magnet. It's like, come and see
Yes.
this. There's something happening. And within that, I have within the Airtable, I've got obviously the company name, the product, and the logo, and I've then got the different categories and tags, but then I've also got work stages. So I've
Mm,
tried to say, this is at work stage. I'm going to use the RIBA work stages 1, 2, and 3 but ideally I'd have that mapped to the AIA as well as other systems as well, because that would help with that translation across different markets essentially. So that is one way. Another way to do it. I haven't got that on the website, but that would be an interesting thing to do, is to be able to create that as an additional field, I suppose, to say what work stages do you primarily work within. So yeah, that's a really good idea. I think that would be something to do, definitely, to help users.
Nice. What has been the most difficult thing uh, as part of the founder's journey?
Oh, um, yeah. Okay, so so this year's been. I finished working at Cope at the end of last year. They were incredibly supportive, which was great, and they've been really helpful. So they gave me essentially a month to kind of get prepped and ready at the end of last year before I took that leap into into it this year. I suppose cash flow is going to be the thing,
Mm.
because working for myself, bootstrapping the whole thing, has meant that I've needed to do consultancy work to fund the marketplace, and the time it takes to talk to founders and develop it and build it and maintain it. So cash flow is probably the key thing, and I'm sure you've had other founders say that. It's super early days in a way at the moment, so um, I've been really lucky with working with some really great architects this year, and other clients as well, doing some BIM work, which has been really good, and some configuration work as well. But I think that's probably, for me, that's been the hardest thing, to go from I get paid on a monthly basis, and I've been doing
Mm,
that for 20 years, to right, I'm gonna have to win work, and I've got to try
mm,
and judge how much I need to charge for this particular job, which it's taken a lot of learning this year to get that right. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges, I think. um, and then I suppose it's just trying to see, if am I reaching the right audience? Am
mm.
I saying the right things? Are people thinking this is useful? It's quite hard to get that feedback, I suppose. Yeah, that's kind of challenging. But yeah, I think this year has been very much about getting the software companies and engaging with them, and finding out what they actually need, which I think I have a better appreciation of now. And then next year will be very much about trying to get them in front of their key audience, so that greater adoption happens, which benefits everyone. Benefits the ConTech companies, because they get more adoption and they can solve more problems, and it benefits those users because they can hopefully work in a more efficient, streamlined, effective, sustainable, productive way.
Mm. Yeah, like as a bootstrap founder, I can like totally relate and
Yeah,
understand.
yeah. I mean, how have you found it this year?
Yeah, I think it, it takes some time to learn skills. Okay, how to like develop systems for getting constant client leads to conversion,
Yeah,
understanding the sales cycle, and then how do you double down on systems that work? How do you eliminate things? So
yeah, yeah. There's a lot of experimentation.
correct, correct.
Yeah, yeah. And at the end of this year, I'll do a kind of review of everything I've done this year, and be like, okay, what was working, what wasn't working. And I think that, I mean, I may be wrong in this, but I think the reality is relationships work. If you have good relationships with people, companies, or if you know people, it makes that whole process a lot easier than definitely a cold outreach to to people that aren't aware of what you do, or aren't in tune with thinking about actually what I want to try and help people with. So yeah, it's relationships, isn't it? That's Yeah, it seems like a no-brainer, but yeah, it takes time to work out.
Yeah, that's the thing. Relationships are not scalable. Some things just takes time, and
Yeah,
people develop trust and they keep seeing you. So that's why I also feel like if you start a company and maybe if you close in a year or two, sometimes it's the third year where all your first few like years of relationship building start yielding fruits and
yeah. I mean, yeah, it's true. Like, so I contacted someone in December last year, when I was like searching around for work, and they got back in touch about 2 or 3 weeks ago.
mm,
And that's like, wow, okay, I didn't expect that at all. But that was partly because of me posting little videos on LinkedIn, but
yeah.
partly because I'd made that outreach a while ago, and it just kind of slowly got to the point where like, oh, it's the right time.
Yeah. And also like marketplace, I was reading a book called Cold Start Problem,
Hmm.
where to attract bunch of visitors, you need a diverse enough like product range, and to get software vendors like to publish, and like how many eyeballs are on your website. So it's a chicken and egg
Yeah, yeah,
problem.
yeah. So I don't know, I definitely recognize the name of that. I can't remember if I think I have. I think I listened to the audiobook on Spotify, and um, yeah. So that chicken and egg problem is a massive challenge for marketplaces, and my approach has been to get vendors on there this year, to get software on there, because you need software companies for users to go there. Obviously, the software companies need users to go there to actually want to be on there. But over time, the idea is that you get that network effect, and it
Mm,
should start building. The I mean, when I speak to software companies, they're like, "This isn't literally." They say, "This is a no-brainer. We want to be on here because there's no risk to them, really. They get
yeah.
to be on there, get to have a profile. I'll do promotion, which essentially is free, and they can put a simple link back to their website, and if they get visitors, that's great. And there are I have got affiliate links with some companies, so if they get a referral, I can get a payment from that, which doesn't happen often, but it should hopefully more over time. And that's how I've got about it. But I think the thing I've learned in the last month is it's not necessarily about numbers. It is more about the right type of person going to
Mm,
that website and looking at it. I had a company, they produced a video and they promoted it on LinkedIn and on YouTube. It got thousands of views, and I was like, wow, this is amazing, well done. You've got amazing load of views. And they were like, we didn't get any uptake, no logins, no requests for a trial, nothing. And I had made a video for them a few weeks, around the same time, I think. It's only been watched by about 50 or 60 people, but one of those got in contact and said, we'd like to sign up for a trial. And they're a
mm,
pretty large UK firm. And so, it's like it's the right person seeing the content. So I'm still making videos, and some are doing all right. I've done one on Swap, which has been watched a few thousand times, which like, this is great. And then other ones which are in like, 10, 20, 60 views. And I really remember at the time when I made the Swap one and I put it live, you could see the algorithm start to promote it up and up and up,
mm.
because people watching the whole thing and clicking onto it, and it was like, wow, this is just grown, because YouTube can see that it's good, so it worked with the algorithm. But there doesn't seem to be a system to that I've cracked. It hasn't really happened again.
Yeah, like I can totally understand. Some of my posts gets amazing views, some don't. But it's sometimes the timing, like,
Yeah,
and also if people like or comment, then again boost to the algorithm. So
yeah, and that's just the challenge, isn't it, behind it all. And I think it's interesting with ones I have made longer, like over a year ago. They obviously start accruing viewers,
mm,
over time. They keep accruing viewers, so it does build up over time. And taking that long view is kind of a good thing. That maybe in the first few weeks it doesn't do as well as possible, but over time, it can do. Yeah, and it's having the right subject matter, isn't it, to meet, like, clearly AI and rendering in AI and stable diffusion, and that's hit a nerve, and people are like doing amazing things with some of their videos with that. And I think similarly, maybe generative design in the architecture space is kind of similar. Um, but yeah, it would be, next month it would be something different that people are interested in, and then the next month it might be something else again.
yeah. Alistair, have you find any interesting like data patterns from listing all the startups? And I mean, in the sense, oh, most of the startups are maybe in like San Francisco, and like there are clusters, road could be there are a lot many startups in early stage, but lot lesser in late. Like,
Mm. Um, I think, I suppose yes, notionally, but yes, it's hard to it's easy to generalize, isn't it? It's like, oh yeah, I think definitely there's a lot of US based companies that are doing um, a lot of quite interesting things, clearly around California, that sort of area. I think Scandinavia seems to be quite a hotbed
mm,
for tech startups and development, and you know, create new tools, which is really exciting. India, I think there's a lot of stuff going on there, which I, there's kind of a hybrid thing, that there seems to be like people who may be based in America and then using India to do a lot of the development,
mm,
or a bit of both. You know, that they, you know, they're based in India but have a US presence. But that's, you know, part of the model. Australia seems to be doing a lot, and I did speak to someone and they said because Australia isn't necessarily a massive market, when an app does well there, they then need to kind of expand to other,
mm.
you know, territories quite quickly, because it will hit a plateau. I don't, I, you know, that sounds sensible. I can understand it. I don't know if it's necessarily 100% true, but it does show that, yeah, that they will kind of um, move, you know, and we have a lot of Australian-based companies, definitely in the UK, and I think they, you know, moving into the US as well, because obviously English-speaking environment is going to help them, you know, scale without having to change too much about what they do. But I would definitely anticipate that, you know, India and Asia will be massive markets that a lot of these companies will want to move into. And yeah, interestingly, you know, things like with the ArchiCAD's used a lot in China and Japan and those sort of areas, whereas in the US it's like it's Revit, you
Mm.
know, and there seems to be a kind of split between, you know, ArchiCAD in the East. But you've got to think about the amount of development going on in the Middle East as well. That a lot, it seems a lot of software companies are moving there, not moving there, but it's trying to get in with the work, because the volume of development is just staggering, quite frankly, isn't it, compared to a lot of other economies.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, like I was clients both in India and US. The the mindset is different, and like the thinking of the expendable R&D budget is also different.
Mm.
So uh, it just takes time to figure out what recipe works in different markets. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, just in terms of data, I have been watching the stats from my website, and I do a 3 monthly report now on how it's going. It may become monthly, but that's quite interesting to look at where the sorry, where the traffic's coming from. And you know, I've seen from my website, you've got, you know, obviously the UK is about, I think, 28%. The US is about 28% as well. And then India and Australia are the two next largest markets. And then there's a whole massive list of European countries and Middle Eastern countries and South American countries, which are all just like, you know, 1%, 2%, 3%,
ah,
where you can see essentially that proliferation of technology, um, um, kind of development and interest from other areas is coming from. So it's not like I've got like thousands of people coming to the website each month, but it's like there's a specific audience coming to the website each month. And in
mm,
all countries, they're grappling with the same thing, which is how do we adopt technology? What technology do we adopt? So that's been, yeah, quite interesting to see that and learn from it a bit. And then, yeah, the idea is obviously to try and um, use that as the basis to grow next year. Um, yeah.
amazing. Uh, any particular problem which, based on experience, there is a need for automation or software solution, but you haven't discovered yet?
Oh. Hmm. What I was thinking was stage 4, which would be detail design. Is that is that right?
LOD, yeah.
Yeah, but sort of when you're doing your working drawings. So when I worked in practice, we basically said, or one of the directors said to me that our most expensive stage is detail design. We lose the most money then, and it takes us the longest, and we're usually late on delivery. And we were at that point. It was like there weren't any. I didn't have an inkling that there'd be so many tools for stage 4, but stage 4 detail design, it does seem to be a critical area where we could be so much smarter. And there are tools like Cope, which is obviously dealing with applying products to IFC models to then schedule out for offsite construction, all that information, which I'm obviously biased because I used to work there, but I think it is genuinely a very incredible tool. Swap is doing the same with Revit models and producing information straight from those models and automating that process, because I've done internal layouts for toilets and kitchens, and and they just go on and on and on forever, and we don't need to do that when we've got better technology to automate that mundane stuff, and we could spend more time designing the really crucial stuff like the entrance and the teaching spaces or communal spaces, what it might be. So I think stage 4 is definitely. I mean, it's interesting that with generative design tools, they've all said, right, let's look at feasibility stage. This is an area, and I've got I think 35 different generative design tools, and it does seem like we've got too many in that area. But obviously, they've all decided that there's enough there that they can share that workload, and their tool will find their niche that will work within. But I'm considering doing a kind of essentially a study of all of that generative design tools, work out what all their features are, and put them into a diagram and just go, look, this is what they all do individually. This is where they're similar. This is where they're different. And then hopefully allow people to make decisions on what one to adopt, because they're like, oh, this is for offsite construction, this is perfect for me, or this one does like infrastructure feasibility stage work, that's perfect for me. So yeah, that's something I'd like to do. I might be something I do in December if I find the time. But yeah, I think those are the two areas which I think definitely stage 4. I think definitely generative design at stage 1, 2, early stage. We could do with a lot more to help with there. I think there are a lot of tools. I think that the challenge is finding them and knowing they exist. Basically, this is Built Smart. So it's BLT SMRT. They're a consultancy in the US. They've got an amazing Revit plugin which will basically schedule out and create all your internal elevations on a project and put it all automatically onto sheets. And it's like that is such a time saver. It's amazing. And I only found out about it recently, and so I've been sharing that pretty much with every architect I meet. I'm like, try this tool; it's going to be amazing. It's going to save so much time. So that's I think they've just put their information on the marketplace as well, which is great. And I'm doing my best to kind of promote them, and other companies as well, to a wide audience.
Yeah, I think like that's the you just justified the need of this database, where like even the small plugins which could like help you in everyday's task are not being like either marketed. Maybe they are popular in US, but the designers in UK are like not aware about it. So
so I spoke to a company called Reop today, which I think they're Scandinavian. They do consultancy work with Heatherwick and Foster's and things, but they've got a set of Revit plugins which has got, they said, I think it's at least 20 different kind of things that those tools do. And what they're talking about is breaking them down into like 20 different apps, essentially. So it's a lot simpler for people to find the right one, but also allows them to obviously monetize and support the ones which maybe really successful, and then have the other ones as leads magnets to their consultancy work. So, but they've that's amazing to have 20 different tools that they've been using to help in their consultancy work to then support their clients and a wider audience. So yeah, I spoke to them literally today, so they didn't know I was going on here today, but hopefully it's a good shout out for them. But yeah, hopefully they'll be on the marketplace fairly soon.
That's amazing. And like to your previous answer, that like when you were sharing like the tools and the chart, and I just realized it would be amazing to have like a bar chart where okay, this many tools in this conceptual, schematic, and that
Yeah,
analytics would also
yeah.
be.
So I could do that if I link my Airtable to Power BI actually, and that would then you'd be able to get some serious metrics out of that actually.
Mm.
That's a good idea. Hang on, I'm literally going to write that down.
I also got another cool idea. So since you have all this uh, tools
Yeah,
and description of the tool, there could be like a opportunity of creating AI chatbot, like where a BIM manager can just say, "Oh, I am looking for a layout optimization tool and visualization tool for Office." And
yeah.
then it searches all the queries, the database, and like, "Oh, you can use this for layout and this tool for visualization," and like.
Yeah. Are you offering to build me an AI chatbot?
No, okay. I'm on the spot for this. Okay, but
Uh,
if I find time in a
yeah.
hackathon, I'll build it.
Yeah, so I did some very quick tests last year. I mean, I'm not an expert with chatbots, but I did use Zapier did have a chatbot that you could create to plug into Airtable, and I did use that for a time. But for the particular models I was using with it wasn't quite accurate enough.
Mm,
I would anticipate if someone like you got hold of it, you would create something which would work a lot better than I was able to create. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I think that would be yeah, that would be a super cool project to put together. And just following on from that, one of the next steps is to look at how you create workflows. So this tool links with this tool, links with this tool, and goes to here. So, we know there's tools like Snaptrude for early stage design, and we've got Speckle, and we know everyone with BIM authoring software is using Revit or ArchiCAD or Vectorworks, most likely from architectural side. But how can you integrate those tools all together? And Speckle is really incredible with what they do with connecting software. But I like the idea that I could create a package and say, you're a small architect, you're just starting out, choose these 4 or 5 software. They're going to give you everything you need for early stage design, carbon assessments, maybe some sort of generative design capacity, BIM authoring, and some sort of visualization AI rendering tool. And you could package that together and go, here you go, and essentially sell it on the marketplace at a discount, because you say, well, I've worked with all these 4 or 5 companies, and they're because you could get 20% off. That would be a really nice thing to do. It's more financially viable, and it helps out those people with that decision making process. So I've explored that a little bit. I kind of talked about it at Next Dev in London this year at the AEC magazine event. But that is definitely something I'd really like to do. But yeah, it's such a big project. It probably needs more kind of like to crowdsource it a bit and say to people, what do you use? How do you use it? What works with what? And build up a way of seeing, how they'll work in a combined way.
mm. I got another idea. Cool one. Okay, so
Okay.
uh, like right now, uh, the way like tool discovery through the platform is like I have one particular task, let's say layout generation, and I look for the tool. But then additional advanced step would be understanding the workflow and breaking down various tasks and recommending the right tool for each task.
Yeah.
And it just got me thinking, what if there's like a graph based visualization? Okay,
Yeah.
conceptual stage, and there
Yeah.
is a drop down or something. Okay, you selected let's say stamped route. And then okay, once you have that, okay, you might like need for schematic or visualization, select that. And then when you select multiple options in this chain, then you get, okay, in order to have this workflow list of 5 tools is gonna cost you $2,000
Yeah.
for one license, or versus another. So they can do like, okay, selection of tools and license or
Yeah.
cost comparison, and you can
Yeah.
offer 25% discount and like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm gonna buy like 5 tools package.
Yeah. That's really interesting. That is really interesting. Yeah. And you could essentially allow them to filter, and because there's two things here, that all this software is, not all of it, but most of it is software as a service. So it's
Mm,
per user per month, which is great if you want flexibility and you want to turn things on and off quite quickly, which during COVID, when I was in practice, we like basically turned off a load of software which was monthly based, because we're essentially saving money because it was, crisis. um, but the flip side of that is it means that um, if you're using a software for consistently over time, and you build up more and more software, it's going to get really expensive, because you've got 10 software as a services per user per month. And in an office of 50 people, let's say, suddenly it's like, wow, this has got very big in terms of the cost of it. So you you could do, as you say, you could optimize, like, based on which software is the cheapest at the time or has a special deal on. And you could kind of like flick between different software, couldn't you? I mean, obviously that negates the fact you have to learn all this software, but
mm,
you could kind of like, yeah, I need to use this. It's like those financial models, isn't it, where they kind of go, well,
mm,
this is the best interest rate for this bank account now. And
correct.
you have that for a month, and then you jump to another bank, and you jump. Are we revealing all these secrets online live? But yeah, but I think there's real opportunity to look at that, how software goes together, because I think we look at it in a too siloed way. I need an early stage tool. It's, in the old days it was SketchUp,
Mm,
but it's not dynamic enough. It's not useful enough. And obviously people typically have Revit, ArchiCAD, a big BIM tool, which costs a lot of money relative to everything else. But there are a lot of tools in and around those, and how you link them together, how you package them together, how you choose them, and how you maybe unchoose them as well. Because
mm,
the reality is, with like low carbon calculators, you might have a project comes in, it's a big project, you need to do a load of carbon assessment stuff on it, but you won't have another massive project like that for, let's say, 2 years. So you only need that software for a short period of time. So you don't necessarily need to, have it like, and just keep it there. So then you can kind of like think about, actually, how can you, turn it off and turn it on again in a much more dynamic way. And a good example of this is when we were when I was in practice, that they were using Apple computers, which was running Vectorworks, and they were moving towards working with contractors who were more or less likely going to have Revit as a requirement, or projects that had other consultants using Revit. And we went through a transition from Apple computers to PCs. But in order to do that, we used a virtual desktop infrastructure as a short-term bridging solution. And that was a desktop which you paid per hour for. So it's a virtual machine. It ran Windows. We installed Revit in there. We had a virtual license manager for it. It was all running really well. So in order to get people from working in Vectorworks, we'd do some training. They'd start using Revit straight away because they had the machines in the cloud. They could use it. And then once they'd run 2 or 3 projects using Revit, they said, okay, now's the time to move to desktop laptops, basically, because VDI was great as a widget, as a bridging sort of thing, but it wasn't, over a long period of time, it's not good value for money, because you're going to pay more than if you just bought a physical machine. So then they moved across to Windows machine, and obviously the old Macs were sold or recycled or whatever. So that model is quite interesting in the sense of software. It's like, actually, you use it for the time you need it, and then turn
yes.
it off when you don't need, whether that's a month, which is typically what software is charging at the moment, or a year, or but it'd be good to try and maybe reduce that down a bit. So you kind of say, actually, we can balance our costs out. We can use software in a much more fluid way and easier way, because the cash flow pressure isn't so high as having to sustain all of it for all of the time. So I do have a lot of thoughts about that. I don't know. There's pros and cons to it, isn't it? From software companies, would they like that? Probably not. But I think if you tested it, users would love it, and they'd be able to say, actually, we use this. We found it like a really good piece of software, and we've decided to take it on, full time because it's so good, which is in the vendor's interest. Or if they say, we tried it, we weren't sure, software vendor can say, okay, well, tell me why. What can I do to improve? So there's a lot of benefits to it, maybe. I've spoken to a company recently where they're like, we'd really like you to get feedback on our software because we can't get it from our users, either because they don't want to engage or they don't have time, or maybe they don't want to be honest. I don't know. But, that's another thing I'm thinking of doing, is saying, actually, send me, your thoughts on a particular software, and then that could be fed back to them to improve their software. Again, that's just a kind of a thought, just like something around this. Maybe next year we'll look at trying to help.
But that's also an interesting like feature idea. Maybe on the listing of the startup on ADD,
Yeah,
ADDD, there's like review and comment feature. Sorry, I'll learn by the end of this interview.
it's literally my fault. Don't worry.
uh, like okay, in like there are like four typical SaaS. There are like marketplace which you have like 5-star ratings and also
Yeah,
like
yeah,
positive, and so
yeah,
that if that's there, then software company automatically gets user feedback and review. But
yeah.
what's the incentive for user to do that is another challenge. But
True. The marketplace at the moment allows reviews, so people can review the store, or they can review products that they've bought. They
mm,
can't review it just randomly. They have to have purchased something through there. So that 5-star system exists on there. But I think that probably most companies looking for something more granular, which is like,
mm,
actually, you know, tell me, 3 out of 5 isn't very helpful. Tell me, is it
what
the
true.
user experience? Is it the like physical architecture behind it? Is it too slow, or is it clunky, or they'd want that sort of thing. So so that so that kind of exists on the website in a simple way, but that could definitely be expanded upon, and be more in depth.
Mm, yeah. And like to your earlier point, I just got like there were like global companies where they share license, uh, like one geography used a particular software during daytime, another geography could
Yeah,
use
yeah,
it. So there
yeah,
is sharing within company. But what if there are small companies or people who are not global? And
yeah,
I'm just also thinking to your early point. Let's say I bought a mid journey for a month. I'm just gonna use maybe for 5 days on a project.
yeah,
Can I do like sharing with another person for 5 days who might be doing like
yeah,
not at a time, and then like it's a win-win for them. It's
yeah.
divide the cost, but the vendors might not like it.
Well, it's about control, isn't it, for them? They
Yeah.
don't want, like, usually within end user license agreements, they're like no subletting. It's just like a standard thing. You can't do that. But I think if you thought about it more flexibly, and were like, actually, if you did allow more flexibility, you basically want more use. The more
Mm,
use of your software will get more use of your software, most likely, unless it's not very good software, in which case you need to improve it. So I think, we know that there's like a global issue in terms of housing. We need more development. We need more sustainable development. And there's no way the existing way that we work is going to solve those issues. So what does that mean? Well, we need better tools, and therefore people need access to those tools, and we need to start using them, whether it's offsite construction, or reducing waste, or carbon analysis, or recycling of materials and deconstruction of buildings, or whatever it is. All these tools should be making those development aims of meeting society's needs in terms of shelter, as well as being sustainable for the long term. We these tools are there to help us do that. And there's some scary statistics about how many buildings we need to build per day, over the next 10 years to meet any sort of requirements. But in the UK, they've said they want to build 1.5 million homes in 5 years. So that's 300,000 a year, isn't it? 300,000 houses a year. That's a lot. We can't deliver that with our current way of working. So how do we do it? And that's going to take definitely new software, new tools to do it, whether it's AI, generative design, algorithms, or whatever it is. We're going to need that to work to deliver that number of houses. And I think most countries have the same issue, don't they? In the US, I'm pretty sure they've got the same issue. We know in the Middle East they're building enormous amounts of housing. And how do we do it sustainably the way we currently work? Well, we wouldn't do it. We're just too slow, too ingrained. Tools don't give us enough data to make good decisions.
Yeah, I know we are reaching 1 hour mark. So my last question is, what would be a piece of advice for students or recent graduates who are entering the field, and a message you'd like to share on a closing note?
Oh, okay, that's great. Yeah, that's really good. So I did a CPD in London, and I had some kind of fairly new students come over to me and say, what can we do to learn about computational design, or get into this side of things? So I think, similar to what we've talked about, it's obviously follow the people or follow the things that you find interesting on LinkedIn, X, or what's the new one? Blue Sky. Maybe Blue Sky. We recommend a slightly less toxic version. Instagram's great for that sort of stuff as well, just for seeing visual content. And YouTube clearly for seeing how this software works. But then there are some really amazing people who are doing things around courses and training. So there's a company called That Open Company, which Antonio has kind of put together, and they have got a course to help you go from essentially no code to being a coder, BIM developer in a really short period of time. And if you want to get into kind of the coding side, that's going to be an excellent step in the right direction in terms of Python, and then building up on top of that. There's the Architect Network run by Oliver Thomas. He's amazing. Like his videos of offices, seeing how they work, what they look like. I mean, they're super, super great. So he's really good to look at. But on his website, they've got loads of courses as well around computational design, parametric design, and absolutely loads. And for essentially very low cost, they're really affordable courses. Stepan Milkulic has got his AI and AEC. So if you're interested in that area, he's got a course again. It's really affordable. I think it was when it launched $99 or euros, and that's amazing. You could get like all that content. I'm trying to think. Conferences are an excellent place to go to if you're interested in them. So Digital Construction Week in the UK and Next Build and Next Dev have been really good. You've got there's London Build next week, Future Build next year as well. I'm not too up to speed on international conferences, but there are loads of conferences, and just if you do a search for them, you can probably find them, and they're worth attending. And what else have we got there? There are, if you want to go to that next level, there are master's levels, computational design. There's one in Barcelona, IAACP. Is that right?
IAAC, yeah.
So they do a computational one. There are quite a few BIM ones as well now. If you want to do more kind of BIM process and BIM management, there's quite a few master's courses for that. And then companies like the Building Research Establishment, BSI, do kind of shorter BIM courses. And that's a nice way to get into understanding some of those larger concepts without necessarily coding, because coding's not for everyone. I don't code. It's not my thing necessarily, but I kind of understand things. But I suppose what I would leave on is, do the things you really enjoy. find what what's interested in the industry for you, and really go into it in a lot of detail. And social media makes people accessible, so talk to them and ask them how they got there, what do they do, and learn from them. And that's one of the great benefits we have now.
That's amazing. I had a great time hosting you, Alistair. Looking forward to much more blog post coming from you.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate it. It's great to be here, and I can't believe it's been an hour. That's gone so fast. Thank you very much, and I'd be